Hi there guys, Al here from Grumpy Grognard Gaming. Got a board game review for you here. Mandalorian Adventures, published by Unexpected Games, who I've not heard of, and designed by Corey Knisha, which I have. He used to do an awful lot of the old Fantasy Flight games they used to make before they just turned into a card game company. The recommended retail on this one is £50. I think I picked it up from a discounter for around about 42, something like that. It's all based on the first season of The Mandalorian, so therefore the good one before it all turned to hell. There'll be no Jack Black or Lizzo in this one. We're just going to have a look at this. I'm going to take you through what the contents of the box are, how the game plays, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts. So first of all, you've got, as you open your box, you've got your rule book, you've got 2 secret envelopes, yay. You've got a game book, and you've got a sheet of tokens. There are no miniatures or dice with this game. It works in quite a different way. We'll have a look at the rulebook first of all. It starts off the very start, before it even gets to like contents and stuff, is just how the game works. It lays everything out for you, gives you the core concepts, where everything's going to go. It's a very elegant design system. I was very pleased with it, I must say. This game gets to the table and plays quicker than maybe any other game that I think I've seen. Very cool design conceits with it that will show you exactly how it all works. I'll explain these more as we get through the review. The game is played on a book, so you have a mission book, which you open up. It's got the map inside it. Now, a lot of other games have done this. This is not the first. You've got Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. I think may have been one of the first to do it. And alongside this, Mass Effect, Priority Hagalaz, I think it is, also did this. And I was actually torn between getting the Mass Effect game and this one. I did look into both, and I opted for this one in the end, even though it is more expensive, primarily because the person I usually play board games with, my missus, doesn't give a crap about Mass Effect, but she does give a crap about Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian. So the rulebook is pretty good. It encourages you to play your first game first, like many rulebooks do now, and then go into the additional rules. And there's also an excellent guide deck that will guide you through sort of playing the game. The rulebook pretty much gets top marks. I was very impressed by the layout, very impressed by the presentation. The way that everything is presented is very straightforward, easy to understand. It's not a massive rule book. There's loads and loads of flicking between sections to find out what's going on. This is a very easy and quick rule book to pick up. And then obviously you've got your quick reference guide on the back, which should be mandatory for any rule book, and a good index section. So overall, rule book I thought was very, very good. It's designed to work alongside the guide deck, so as you proceed through the 4 initial missions that are in the game, it's like a tutorial. It really does guide you through playing the game, and I was very impressed with it in that way. The guide deck guides you through your first 6 missions. Now, you hear I only said there were 4 missions in the book. That is right, because after the 4th mission, you're going to open the first envelope. After each game, the guide deck will add more cards into your game, be there more skill cards for your characters, more event cards, and new rules for some of the guards, which again is done in a very clever way. Let's look at the envelopes. These I love, and not just for the contents, although I've only opened envelope 1 as of this time, but I love the fact that they've put Arabesh, which is the Star Wars language, essentially Star Wars alphabet, on the envelopes. Just a really nice little touch that I'm like, yep, I appreciate the attention to detail and design that you've done there. So yeah, you've got your 2 envelopes. You'll open the first one after game 4, the second one after game 6. We've played 5 games in total. Here's your tokens. You get 2 sheets of tokens. You'll see that it's the same sheet printed differently, that you've got different numbers on the tokens. Those run you through missions 1 through to 4. Very clever. Basically, if you're playing mission 1, whichever variation of mission 1 you're playing, you use token set 1. If you're playing mission 2, you use token set 2. If you're playing 3, 3, and 4, 4. And these tokens have objectives on them. They have enemies on them. They have reinforcements. You've got your standees there. Like I said, there's no figures in this game. No plastic at all. So you've got your wound counters there. They're double-sided. 1s turn into 2s, 3s turn into 4s. Again, very elegant, very streamlined and efficient design. And then the little yellow things are disrupt tokens, and we'll get into those when we talk about how the game works. The other book that you get in the game is the mission book. This is the one that's got all the maps on it. And there's 4 maps in total, which might not seem like a lot, but again, we'll get to more about that in a second. So opening up the mission book, each mission is preceded by a piece of comic book art that basically takes you through the episode of The Mandalorian that it's based on. So the first one is Mando meeting with Grief Karga and then going to Imperial Dude, whose name I can't remember, and going off to find Baby Yoda, Grogu. And then it'll give you the map and all of the rules for this. The map extends over slightly into the first page of the book. And what I really like about this is you've got all the mission rules on the left-hand side, and then you've got your kind of objective rule off to the side. And there is a reason for that we'll go over in a moment. You'll see at the bottom, you've got these 4 categories here. These are where you'll play cards. We'll go into this a little bit more in the gameplay section. But the other thing you need to know is that there's a crisis condition here. That's the bad thing. You've got your success and your failure criteria. And again, it's all laid out quite elegantly. It shows you where to put your tokens down. But some tokens go face down, so you don't know what they are. Some tokens go face up, so you'll see what those enemies are. And you'll see here that the square ones are face up. All the circle ones are face down. The 2 triangle ones here are your potential objectives, which is the child or Baby Yoda or Grogu, whatever you want to call it, little green shit. So in this mission, what you need to do is you need to find the 2 door unlocks, which are among the face down round tokens. And then once you've got those, you can unlock the door, and then you've got to get the child. Moving on, there's another mission here. For some reason, this is actually mission 4. I think this might be the only 2 that I took while I was doing the actual book. You'll see there's an extra action down here you can take. The games get more complex as you go on. As I said, by the time you're playing mission 4, you're more or less playing the full game. So you've got loads more guard actions and kind of types added. The game really expands out as it goes. It's very, very cool. Everything has been laid out to go back into the game, including what you get in the envelopes. And you'll see a bit more of that in a second. But you've got these decks. So one's your guide deck, one's your character and skill deck, and there's an event deck in there as well. And your small deck here is like a skill deck, because one of the actions you can take is to get skill cards to help you throughout the missions. So everything all goes out back in nicely. Here's your characters. You'll recognise all these characters from the first season of Mandalorian. To start off with, you'll play through the missions using specific characters. But there is also a sandbox mode you can use where you can use any character you like. Each character plays differently. So Grief Karga up here, the legendary Carl Weathers, rest in peace. He plays like influencing the deck, doing lots of intel and planning and moving bits around. Cara Dune plays like a support character. So she works best if she's got another character in her space. She enhances those characters. Mando's your all-round. Paz Visitor is your heavy weapons dude. You know, all the DACA basically. Berg is your brute, just pure physical brute force, running in, bit of a tank. And then all the others have got their own, sort of facets as well. So that's one thing that's really cool. All the characters play differently, which means that each time you try a mission with a different character, it is going to play differently. It's not going to play exactly the same. You are going to have to adapt your tactics somewhat. So each character gets a deck of skill cards. Those skill cards have basically got numbers on them, and then there's a few special cards as well that have got actions. You'll see that some of the cards have got symbols on them. That just means that if you play it to that action, then you get to do that, that on top of the number kind of thing, or sometimes instead of the number. It depends on the cards. As you go through the game, as you go through the guide deck, these decks will be added to. You'll get some really cool new cards added in, are very powerful but have drawbacks. So this is just what you start off with. These are your event cards. So what happens is you saw those cards previously. Well, after your turn, if the cards that you've played to each of those slots, and you get to play 2 cards per turn out of a hand of 4, or 3 if you're playing on hard mode, if that slot adds up to 5 or more, then you have to take an event card and turn it over to see what happens. And it can be different stuff like guards can activate, you can get reinforcements spawned. Some of them are nastier than others. Some of them just move dudes. Some of them have guys shoot. And if you lose a character in this game, that's it. The game ends. These are the planning cards. If you do a planning option, when you play a card, you get to take some planning cards, you get to keep one, put one back on top of the deck, and then discard the others if memory serves. As you can see, everything goes back in the box really nicely. Now, I cannot emphasise how much I appreciate this in a game. One of the main things I look out for, especially after taking 45 minutes trying to reorganise Gloomhaven and get everything back in that bastard box. This is really impressive. So you see everything fits in there, no problem at all. This is just your core contents. This doesn't include anything that's in the envelope or anything like that. And although the insert is made of this kind of cheap recycled cardboard, doesn't matter to me. Really useful, really awesome. Fantasy Flight Games. I know you don't make board games anymore, you're just glorified card game company, but take note, this is how you do an insert. Let's have a look at the game, how the game plays. This is a game in progress. You'll see that using Mandalorian and IG-11, the reason for this is because when you first play the game, you have to use Mando and IG-11. After all, they're the ones that were in that first episode of The Mandalorian. This is where one small problem happens, because this is brilliant for me and my missus, because there's just two of us. We play this game, boom, off we go, one character each, play it through, 40 minutes, we're all done. If you've got 4 people, the game suggests some kind of weird sharing characters mode, which to me just looks awkward as hell. I wouldn't recommend it. Play it solo, no problem at all. Take your 2 power characters, off you go, do your thing, grand. But for more players, doesn't really work. The scale of the game is kind of small, not a great big epic game. So as I say, mission 1 was rescue the child. You're looking for these door tokens, going through, looking for them. Once you get the door tokens, the door unlocks, and then you have to go get a child and then get out again. And you'll see here that the cards get played over time. Now what happens is when you first set up the game the first time, you get these disrupt tokens put on, making some more risky than others. Once you go over 5, you then, at the end of your turn, clear off all of the cards and the token. If you've hit 5 exactly, then you draw just an event card. If you hit 6 or more, you also resolve a crisis. And the crises all have different rules, and generally the crises are how you lose the game. Quite a lot of the crises involve putting down a token on that crisis spot, and once you've hit a certain amount, then something really bad will happen, or you'll lose the game. On top of doing a crisis, you also always do an event. So you'll see here, on this one, that Kirsty, who was playing as IG-11, has played a free card on move on top of my two move cards. So that is going to trigger a crisis. And over here, on Intel, she's played this special card for IG-11, which is a free, which on top of the free will also trigger a crisis. Both of these are trigger crises and events, but you'll lose all the cards. They'll go back into your relevant discard piles, and you'll take off the disrupt tokens. So going forward, it'll be easier to play these. But to start off with, it's just a way of making sure that stuff happens early on in the game, and that there's a constant flow of sort of reinforcements and things you to kill. They won't want it to be too easy for you. You see the game's proceeding here. We've made it up to the door. Got one door code, looking for the other so we can get in. You'll see also we're playing on novice mode. Only 8 wounds on novice mode. If you flip that card over, it's not novice mode anymore, and I think Mando only has 7 wounds. You'll also see that he's taken a wound here. Very few ways to heal wounds. There's like normally 1 healing token in here that heals a wound. Other than that, you don't get to heal. If you've got a defend card, you can negate a wound, but very rare that you'll get through a game completely unscathed. And here you'll see we've got both door tokens, and we're making it into to get Baby Yoda, Green Gobshite, and then get out again and save the game. And I think this one might end when you actually just get the child. Can't remember for sure. But hey, if you want to put extra difficulty onto it, it's a modular game. You can do that in quite a few impressive ways, which I'll get into. There's your different character decks. Now, as I said, after each game, with the guide deck, it basically gives you a load of cards to add in. So you're adding to your character decks, getting more powerful as the games go on, but at the same time, the guards are getting more powerful as well. By the time you've finished the 4 games, you will have played as all of the characters. Very cool idea, getting you used to each character's play style as you go through this kind of tutorial 4 missions of the game. This was the 3rd mission. This one, you've got to break out the prisoner. So you have to open all the cell doors and escape with the prisoner. The crisis condition for this was actually really cool. You get the planning deck, take the bottom card. If it's bad luck, you put a tracker on here, and it's the resistance, the alliance tracking you. And if it gets to here, you lose because they found you. So yeah, this was another really cool mission, little mission. Extra cards been introduced at this stage, more powerful cards, but at the same time, more rules on the bad guys. Very, very cool game design. Really quite liked it. And then this is the fourth mission. The fourth mission is essentially kind of the finale, where they escape into the sewers, the final confrontation with Moff Gideon and everything like that. This one was an absolute sod, because basically if Moff Gideon gets to you, he takes the child no matter what. And if Moff Gideon gets to his TIE fighter with the child, game over. So it was like a game of little green hot potato, constantly going to him, making him, playing this distract thing to get him to drop the child into an adjacent space, grabbing the child and trying to get into the sewers. Envelope 1 basically has more ways to play the game. So what it will do is it will add more ways to play each of those 4 missions, even more cards, a new skill deck, almost like a new character, and a traitor mode. So what it's essentially doing is properly expanding your game. If you look at this game and think, there's only 4 missions, I'm going to get it done in no time, even having different characters to use in the sandbox mode, not at all. There is a lot of replayability in this little box. As you play this is a game that just keeps on giving. It just keeps on giving you more stuff. It wants you to play it more. It's like, play for those 4 missions? Great, here's some stuff. Chuck this on top of the missions, kind of as part of the design to change the mission and play it again. Still using the same kind of tokens, but shifting things about in ways that I don't really want to reveal here. But let's just say another thing. If you're looking at that and going, that's not the whole of the first season of Mandalorian, what about the kind of the filler episodes? Don't worry, there's some stuff of that in there as well. Played Mission 5, and Mission 5 is basically kind of like just your choice kind of thing. And then after Mission 5, it's like whether you win or lose, play Mission 6, adding a couple more little bits in, and then when you finish Mission 6, win or lose, then add these final little bits. So 6 missions, you've got the whole breadth of the game to play again as much as you want. We lost Mission 5. It was hard. But you lose it, 45 minutes, an hour, you would have time to play again if you lose. It's not like, we lose. It's not like you play Eldritch Horror. And one of the things with Eldritch Horror is it's like a 3-hour game. And you play all the way through those 3 hours and then you lose it in and you're like, I cannot be bothered to play through all of that game again. Let's just put it away and then we'll come back to it in a week or whatever. This one you can do multiple plays in one session. So let's get on to the actual review. First, presentation. Absolutely top notch. Really looks good. Love the design of it. Love the Arabesh. The attention to detail, the overall look of the game, really nice. There's a lo-fi elegance to everything. It doesn't feel massively premium. It feels like Star Wars, which is going to sound like a really weird thing to say, but whereas Mandalorian captured that kind of lived-in, grubby look of Star Wars so much better than anything like the sequels or anything like that did, this does the same. Like the wound tokens, they're kind of a kind of just a beige with a stark print on them, and you turn them over, and the ones with more wounds and are slightly darker. It's all very lo-fi and Star Wars feeling, and I really like it. I think the cards look great. I love the way that everything just goes away in the box afterwards. If I had to nitpick on it, if I had to nitpick on the presentation of the game, I think the only thing I would say is just that comic art. It's a little bit pushing it a little bit too far. If I see art in something and I think that I could do better, then I get slightly concerned. And it's not like I'm the best artist in the world or anything, but I mean, there's an example of my drawing.
I'm no Picasso, but do you like it?
And I'm looking at that art and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of think like I could probably do better than what's in that book. So yeah, that was the only quibble that I can make from a presentation perspective. The actual game and the way it plays, it's got a very puzzly feel to it, which is very, very, very immediate. You're always thinking in your turn, what am I going to do? Oh, she's played that. So if I play this and I can do this, and you communicate between each other, but you can't show each other cards. The game plays quick, very quick. Literally half an hour, 45 minutes. To do. It's also one of the quickest games to set up and tear down that I've seen. Open your page, put your tokens down, shuffle your cards, do your cards. Fantastic. I love the risk reward kind of design, where you put your cards down in the slot and you're like, am I going to go over it? Can we get away with doing another crisis? Can we not? Do we maybe need to cool it for a little bit? What's the next event card on top? Is that going to really screw us over? Can I play a card that's going to influence the event deck, which you can do with certain characters and stuff like that? I also really like the fact that it's got a small table presence. The book's not huge, double-sided, on the board, a couple of decks of cards, and it's, a little bit of space to play it. You could play this on a coffee table. So it is nice and compact in that way. It's an easy game to play, very easy game to teach, very simple concepts for people to play, and a very elegant design by Corey Konieczka. But I really like. I think it's really been done well. But there are different difficulties. So, you can flip those cards over from novice to normal, lose a wound. And if you really want to ramp up difficulty, try playing it with only 3 cards to choose from rather than 4. And I can tell you, even with 4, sometimes you've got no choice. You're like, I am going to have to trigger a crisis this turn. I've got no choice. My hand's full of high cards, and there's no mulligan or anything like that. I love the way that it expands after each game. Played 5 games, and after every game, it's like, here's more stuff for you to play with. Here's a new cool card for your skill deck. But at the same time, here's 3 new event cards that are going to go into that deck, that are going to balance it very, very well. If I had to level 2 complaints at the game design, they would be, one, that it just kind of feels a tiny bit abstract with standees and tokens. It just feels you don't get the epic immersion in Star Wars that you would get with minis, like playing something like Imperial Assault. And I've got all of Imperial Assault. I could use Imperial Assault minis in this, no problem at all, apart from the ATST, which is far too large. But there's information on those tokens that you do need. So with limited space, would I bother? Maybe if I wanted it to look really cool or something, but at the end of the day, does it make that much of a difference? Maybe not. The choice is yours. And the other thing that I would level up against this is just that, again, it's no good if you've got 4 people wanting to play and you want to play that first mission with only 2 characters in it. Unless you're using their awkward sharing method, then you're going to find that a little bit of a pain. So certainly those initial missions in the way that it plays is a little bit limiting if you've got a larger group of people. But for 2 people, this is absolutely fantastic. As this review is getting on a little bit, let's look at the value. There are only 4 core missions in the rulebook, but this expands so much more once you've opened those envelopes. Even just the first envelope expands your game 4-fold at least. Going up from sort of having 4 missions to play to almost like a 16 different types of missions you can play. And that's before you even add on all of those different characters. The way that it feeds into you as you go and expands the game is very, very, very clever. However, I have to say there are no minis or dice in the game, so you are paying a premium essentially for what is cardboard. But that Star Wars license is expensive. But I do feel that I need to level against this Mass Effect Operation Hagalaz, which is a £40 RRP. You can probably get it for 35 from a discounter. And that has got, although all the enemies are tokens, that has got 6 miniatures in it, and it's got bespoke special dice. So, although from what I understand, that does get a bit samey, and it's one of the reasons why I lumped for this one. It's up to you whether you want to play that. I think this is at a good point, personally. I think 50 quid, I'd like it to be a little bit cheaper, but the Star Wars license isn't cheap, probably compared to the Mass Effect one. I think 50 quid's good. I think what you get, 50 quid, is absolutely fine. Obviously, you can get it a little bit cheaper from most third-party retailers, which is great. I think the value is there, but I do understand upon initially opening this box, you might be, that's not a lot. It looks a bit expensive. You've got 2 token sheets, like 3 decks of cards, and that's your lot, and a little bag with some plastic standees and a couple of books with a couple of envelopes. So what I would say is it's kind of a more than meets the eye. The game expands in ways that you don't expect. And by the time you've got through certainly these first 5 missions, you're like, okay, I can see a lot more replayability out of this than I first thought that I would get within this game. The 8 characters play really differently. So overall, I think this is good. Board games are getting very expensive now. Like Frosthaven's like 140 odd quid. The New Descent was like 130 odd pound because of all the miniatures in it. Generally, miniatures bump up the price of a game a lot. Zombicide is another good example. The new Zombicide Marvel versions are like £120. at £50, if you want a small scale game that you can play and just get to the table again and again and again and have a load of fun, I think this is really good. So I do think the value is there. And overall, I have to say that although this was a blind pump from Unexpected Games, if you excuse the pun, I did not know what to expect. I was pleasantly impressed by this game.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
The pedigree of Kori Konichiwa really shines through. I think there's an elegance to this design that I've not seen since something like Cthulhu Death May Die, and I would thoroughly recommend picking this up. So, are you going to pick it up? Have you picked it up? Have you played it? What do you think? Let me know down below, and I'll be back with another review soonish. Thanks, guys.